Hey friends, Mr. E here, and it's Skitarii time. It's of course Skitarii time all the time. Today I want to talk about the Skitarii's kit. I want to do some speculating on this because, as you guys know, we are just a few short days away from it not being Skitarii next month. We're almost out of Skitarii next month powder. We are gonna have to swap over to Skitarii this month powder, and with that that's also very exciting, but it's also kind of sad because that is the closing of the window where I can genuinely speculate on this stuff. And to me, I don't know about you guys, but to me, some of the coolest parts about having new things added to my favorite games is speculating on it, is like thinking and theory crafting about what this could be bringing to the game, how might this work, and seeing how that shapes out and getting all hyped. So yeah, that's what I want to do today. I think there's a ton of information out there in like one way or another. I've collated a good bit of it here. If you know of any more, you can comment it down below if you've seen some bit of info that I haven't about the class. But yeah, I think we're probably like a couple weeks away at least from having the dev blog about the different weapons and how they actually function. So let's kind of speculate. Let's think about how these things function. Now, today I'm going to talk about his kit in general. So I'm not only going to talk about the 6 exclusive weapons that the class has, but also the Servo-Skull that he has and what that thing can potentially do for us, which we have a little bit more information about, and what the class archetypes are going to be capable of. Because I've gone back and forth a little bit about the class archetypes, and I think I've kind of just like finally established what it's going to be. And there's also one more thing that I think is like kind of maybe potentially possible. I think that there might be some types of weapons that are not like listed here, that are not weapons, if that makes any sense. We'll come back to that in a little bit if you'll bear with me for a second. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thank you for everybody who has become a member recently. Tons of you, mostly off the mod video, I assume, but yeah, I love all my members. Join the members Discord, see pictures of Bernie, all that stuff, and I love my best friends the most, of course. Elise, Neva, Sai, what's up? Thanks, guys. All right, let's begin. I want to talk about these weapons here. As we can see, I'll put the picture-in-picture up. This is the deluxe edition kit that you'll get for extra, I think it's like $8 or something. And I am going to go off the assumption that just like the Hive Scum and the Archetypes before them, that the exclusive weapons that are displayed here, this is all of the class exclusive weapons. That they're not going to be like, oh, there's actually 9 class exclusive weapons, and we just made skins for 6 of them. I highly doubt that. I think that much more likely they did 3 melee and 3 range just like last time. Not to say that these aren't really cool weapons and they are not going to have high potential, but yeah, I'm highly doubting there's any more than that. But I think there might be some other stuff in the arsenal that is a little bit hidden so far. So let's start with what we've got here. Let's kind of explain what you're seeing. So in the bottom left, starting going left to right, sort of across the spectrum, we've got the Transonic Blade and the Transonic Razor. This is a dual-wielded set, insofar as I can tell, because it says there's 6 weapon skins, and these are definitely a pair. They're like overlapped. We have the Power Sword. This is like a Skitarii Alpha Power Sword, I believe is the mark that is. I couldn't really find too much information about like how that's different, but hey, it's Power Sword. And then we got the Arc Maul. We have the Phosphor Pistol here. We have the Galvanic Rifle, and we have the Arc Rifle. So yeah, these are some pretty cool weapons, and they are very, very like, you know, this is like the core set for Skitarii. These are kind of like no-brainers. In fact, when I was describing Skitarii a long time ago, I'm pretty certain I hit directly on most of these being included, especially the Phosphor Pistol and the Transonic Blades. Those, I have a pretty damn good idea of what they're going to do. And so with that being said, let's start to talk about those Transonic Blades. So Transonic Blades, these weapons are able to attune themselves to the resonant frequency of armor. And what that means is basically, you know how like there's that old like I don't know if it's a rumor or like myth that like if you align your atoms just right, you could like pass through solid material. It's basically that, more or less. It's vibrating on the same frequency, and then you just kind of like vibrate your atoms right through the armor and then hit the flesh directly. And this kind of is like the 40k equivalent of the monofilament from, you know, cyberpunk in you know, or cyberpunk like worlds in general, where it's like atomically thin. This is very similar to that. My guess, since we have recently had a nerf that has removed Uncanny Strike's rending capabilities from the game. My guess is that this blade, or this combo of blades, will get that functionality. That will become their special functionality. I don't think it'll work the same way. I don't think it's going to be like, hey, you just got Uncanny Strike here that stacks on hitting headshots. I think the weapon's special is going to be kind of a weak strike, but it's like a tuning blow. So as it says here, when they strike armor, these weapons adjust their hostile sonic field to match the armor's resonant frequency. And that to me says what you'll do is you'll have a type of armor in front of you and you'll strike it with your weapon special, and that will then attune your blades for X amount of time. Now, obviously, in like lore, they could probably stay attuned forever, but I think for gameplay purposes, you will have to reset your attunement every so often. And there will likely be an incentive to attuning to things that aren't carapace, right? So you'll get extra damage against flak, or extra damage against like infested or unyielding or whatever, rather than it just being like, you know, the de facto thing to just search out the nearest carapace enemy and attune to them, because that was what, like, you know, rending was for. But yeah, just a ability to augment your damage and deal more damage against your attuned, sort of your like chosen foe with this weapon. And that would make a good pairing for the use case of this weapon, which is supposed to go with the Skitarii Ruststalker sort of archetype, who is a berserker sort of bloodthirsty assassin, gets in there fast, stabby, rips people apart. Definitely makes sense that he would be able to like have a chosen foe and be like, I don't respect your armor at all. You are now dead, and then just cut them to pieces. So that is a really cool one. I can't wait to see what the moveset is on this, because we have not had a asymmetrical weapon pair in the game yet. We've had the twin knives now, the twin shivs, but we have not had this asymmetrical pair like we had in Vermintide 2. So that's what I want to see. Then we've got the power sword here. Now the power sword is, as I said before, there's almost no information about anything different that this power sword, this mark of power sword, does than the typical power sword. I'm guessing it's just a power sword that this class can have that has a different moveset than the existing power swords. Hopefully it's got the pointy stab that the Mark 6 has, because that thing is insane. But yeah, I'm highly doubting that it operates too different. I just think it's a weapon exclusive, like a class exclusive power sword here. And these are wielded by Skitarii Rangers and Skitarii Vanguards. And yes, it's a pretty classic fit. Then next up we have the Arc Maul, and this is where I want to make a slight tangent here, because this is where it gets a little bit weird. I'm confused by some of their wording. So here is a blurb, an excerpt from the bottom of their store page, and I want you to read down here, or I'll read to you at least. So the advanced war gear of the Skitarii includes legendary arc weapons, electrified goads, dazzling phosphor blasters, slicing transonic blades, and high-powered galvanic rifles. So as we already established, we have the Arc Maul, arc rifle, the galvanic rifle, the transonic blade, transonic razor, the phosphor blaster, the power sword, but we don't have any electrified goads, like by definition of goads. And that one is a little bit weird to me, because there is such a thing as a taser goad. This is a taser goad here, and that would be what I would think they were including here. But in the graphic, if we look at the graphic here, this weapon is 1 million billion cajillion percent an Arc Maul. Like there's no way that's not an Arc Maul. This is what an Arc Maul looks like. So like, yeah, you tell me. That is, to me, like, no duh, that is an Arc Maul. That would have to, you'd have to be crazy to not have that. So yeah, that's kind of a weird one, where they said that there was a taser, like electrified goad, but like they've already said, arc weapons. So maybe there's a different type. And this is what I was saying before. There's a potential that there are some weapons that are not like your typical equipped to weapon slot 1, equipped to weapon slot 2 that you can use. And you know, we'll get back to that in a second as I show something else. But yeah, that's weird there. I think that's a little bit of a, either maybe it was something they were developing and they had to drop it and it still made it into the store page, or it's like, I think, like I was just saying a second ago. So this weapon itself, the Arc Maul, remember, we already have the Shock Maul and the Arbites Shock Maul in the game. So you got to differentiate yourself from those two, right? That's going to be the main struggle here. The Arbites Shock Maul has an electrified single strike that can then stun enemies if you follow up on it. Then the regular Shock Maul has like a channeled shocking thing that can paralyze enemies for 5 seconds or so. It's pretty cool. And then the Arc Maul, what I think based on the description here is, however, when activated, it becomes a rod of lightning, unlike unto those wielded by the gods of old earth. My guess here is that this weapon has an activated form. It has a battery. And so it stays charged and is dealing electrical damage, like extra electrical damage while it's charged, sort of power sword or like relic blade like. But I think this is also, these arc weapons are going to use a new mechanic called arc, because the devs directly mention that I think they're talking about the arc rifle in that sense, but they directly mention that arc is a new mechanic that causes enemies to have lightning leap between them. So my guess here is that we power up this weapon, and then when you're hitting enemies with it, it's basically tagging them. It's like putting arc passively on them, and then after that, if you continue to hit enemies, lightning will jump to them from there. So the like optimal way to play with this would be to, if you have like a horde and some elites around you, you would first kind of slap the horde around a little bit with the powered up mode to get them all marked for this, get them primed, and then you would start to do your attacks on the elites, so that then arcs would shoot off and clear out all that horde. And that could be a pretty cool sort of mechanic if you can chain lightning, if you can do a Mjolnir sort of PoE thing with this. I think that would probably be the way I would go about differentiating this thing from the Shock Maul, and having it be like, not only does it potentially crowd control, probably has a pretty good stun, a pretty good amount of stagger, but also able to distribute lightning damage. And we know that these Arc Mauls are used by Skitarii Vanguard primarily, and Skitarii Vanguard are like they're like kind of more power armory. That I think is what we are being alluded to, having electrical powers, or sort of being the electrical archetype for this class, as I'll get back to in just a second here. So we then have to move on to our range weapons. We've got 3 here: the Phosphor Pistol, the Galvanic Rifle, the Arc Rifle. Let me show you the Phosphor Pistol. I mean, this is 1 bajillion%. Again, the Phosphor Pistol. Here it is right here. So the Phosphor Pistol, to me, is going to be one of the more obvious ones to predict what this will do. We have it described right here. When you shoot this at a target, it not only burns them, because it's fucking white phosphorus, shoves into them and they're going to get burnt, but then basically it highlights the target, right? So everybody can see that target now, and they can prioritize that target and murder them. We've already got a function like this in the game. It's called Focus Target, right? Where the veteran points at something and they take extra damage until he takes the tag off them or they're dead. And I'm guessing that this pistol has a similar functionality, where it has a marking function where now once you've shot it into the target, if anybody who shoots this thing is going to get an extra percentage chance to crit, or like whatever it is, right? And of course it'll apply burn stacks as well. Now the thing that I'm most intrigued to see here is, can this like smart fire? Can this have your weapons and stuff auto attack this target? Because one of the things it says down here is that we have this, like, you know, phosphor sort of tag on the target, and then there's a light guided volley that follows. So in the lore, Skitarii and their legions will have like missile launchers, or even like flechette, like shoulder mounted launchers that are then smart guided to this target that is marked. So if there is some sort of follow up on this in the game, where you can mark the target with the phosphor, and then for the next amount of time, your shots are like redirected to that target, that would be super, super cool. That would be really, really awesome if you could do that 1-2 punch, like with your blitz ability or something. That would be pretty awesome. So yeah, that's what I think the Phosphor Blast Pistol is going to do here. Some sort of like weakening, target marking thing. Great for like a combo. Remains to be seen how it combos with the like the rest of the class, but yeah, pretty cool there. Then we have next up the Galvanic Rifle. Now the Galvanic Rifle is this big long boy here. People were very excited to see this. This is one of the only ones they really showed in the demo of like the Skitarii holding this weapon. And this thing is a little bit hard to figure out what it's going to do. Obviously it is a marksman's rifle. It's a precision weapon. And as it says here, the galvanic servitor bullets inside are incredibly advanced. When a bullet strikes home, it causes all the potential energy of the target to burn out in a killing blast of electrical force. So, as written, that sounds a little bit OP, right? Like all the potential energy in a target, it just basically like immolates their flesh. It just turns all of their ATP into electrical energy and just fries them on the spot. That sounds pretty OP, but what I think this might be in practice is, as it say, a killing blast electrical force. If we've already got a mechanic in the game where when you shoot, I forget what the actual like enemy modifier is, but there's these corrupted tentacle-headed enemies in certain Havoc missions, and we had it for an event where if you shoot them in the head, they explode and they knock everything back, right? But if you shoot them in the head and kill them, they explode with electricity and shock the enemies around them. That is what I would guess this will do, where it's going to require precision, it's going to require a headshot kill, maybe it'll require a headshot crit or something, but when you kill them, they'll explode and they'll have like electrical shock around it, because you have to find a way. It's not just going to be that these weapons, again, none of these weapons are going to be just a regular weapon that we already have, right? They're going to be some variation that has something special going on, and this one, I think that the idea here might be if you can snipe headshots, you're going to cause like little AoE explosions that shock other enemies and set them up for headshots, which could be a pretty cool way to put it. And then finally, we have our last arc weapon here, the arc rifle. So here's the image of it again. Definitely an arc rifle. I love the way this looks like the in-game. I bet that's going to be super cool as a first-person model. So yeah, the arc rifle here has this big thing. Here's a capacitor. That's like your battery pack, more or less. These capacitors are massive, like crazy massive. Of course, in the game, they're going to have limited ammunition, but in lore, these things can last for like millennia in terms of their charge. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, these arc rifles, they've already told us that this is going to also have that arc property where it jumps between targets who are primed with arc and can deal pretty well eliminating horde. Again, what I would guess here is that, yeah, this is going to, like, the first time you hit a target, they'll get arced, and then every time you shoot other targets, it will still zap to them. Although, I think that this is a weapon where we are primed to have a different style of trigger, right? Where this is not just going to be like a one-tap, one-shot sort of thing. I think if I was using a weapon with a capacitor like this, I would just do it like the Tesla kit. Not, yeah, is that what I'm thinking of? What's the thing in Helldivers, right? Where you charge up and then you release, I think it's called the Tesla cannon. But yeah, having a delayed trigger like that, only the Hellbore lasgun in the game has a delayed trigger in that sense right now, where you, depending on the charge that you hold down for, that's your effect. So maybe that is the core mechanic here, where if you hold down the trigger for longer, it's going to arc between more enemies. And then, yeah, so you're going to get like a bigger jump for the lightning. It's going to clear out more and more horde. So that could be pretty cool, right? That could be very, very cool if we can get some sort of like charging effect like that. I can't wait to see like the aesthetics of this. Now, speaking on these weapons, by the way, one really big thing I'm hoping for, you know, we saw it in the trailer, but like this weapon, the arc rifle here, and especially the Foster pistol, what I really want to see is the lighting effects on these. I really want to see if they were able to get the fact that this is a literal white phosphor. It's basically a flare gun that you shoot into enemies' faces. If they got this so that this can work as a light source in those nighttime missions or the blackout missions, that would be incredible. If it's like, okay, you shoot this into an enemy and now the entire area is bathed in this white phosphor light for the next 15 seconds. That would be really cool. I bet that would look amazing. Because sometimes Darktide's lighting engine actually goes pretty fucking hard. And I could imagine them making this work. That is something I'm very curious to see. Okay, so that is everything as far as our lovely weapons that are shown in the deluxe edition stuff here. But I also want to talk about our friend the Skull, because the Skull has had some more information put out about him in the last day or so. So here is a little bit of a Servo-Skull blurb. This is available now that we've unlocked the third objective in the Dark Rites event that's currently going on in Darktide. So it says Servo-Skulls are a relatively common sight in the Imperium. They perform any number of menial tasks, but are used most effectively by the martial forces of the Adeptus Mechanicus. When accompanying tech priests and Skitarii warriors, these useful constructs are built with specific weapons or tools to aid their masters. Able to act semi-independently, Servo-Skulls can be ordered to protect targets, engage enemy combatants, and even perform Medicae on injured comrades. Very, very interesting here with potential like implications for the game itself. And I want to pair this with what they have said in their the store page about the Servo-Skulls. So accompanying them, meaning the Skitarii, is the adaptable las pistol wielding Servo-Skull, which not only engages enemy targets, but can also be instructed to execute data interrogation protocols. Further upgrades to the Blitz ability unlock additional Servo-Skulls, each fitted with specialized functions to expand and reinforce the Skitarii's lethality against heresy. So this is really, really tantalizing here, because it doesn't say that it unlocks like different kit for your one Servo-Skull. It says unlocks additional Servo-Skulls. Can we potentially have multiple Servo-Skulls active around our character at any given time? And can they have different abilities, or do we only have one? My thoughts on having different abilities like on your Servo-Skull is that the game is pretty limited in terms of the buttons that you can press, right? Like you aren't going to want to release a new class and then outright expect players to have to bind 2 new keys to control all their Servo-Skulls. So it's going to have to be one button functionality. The 2 ways I think they could go about this is, one, they could limit you to having additional Servo-Skulls, but they're all of one type. So you can spend an extra point to get an extra charge on your Servo-Skull's ability. I'm guessing that these Servo-Skulls have like a passive attack and then an active attack because they are the blitz for the class. And we saw that in the sort of dev blog, we had the Servo-Skull, like, you know, how blitzes have their little augments, the little things that hang off of them. So there was a couple branches out. So maybe one of those is like, hey, grab an extra Servo-Skull, but increase the cooldown of its active ability by 33% or something like that. I could see that being balanced and pretty cool. Now, as to what these can do, obviously, execute data interrogation protocols means these drones can hack. They can shoot with the las pistol. That's going to be the base sort of feature of the skull. But based on what they're saying over here in the thing we just saw today, they can be ordered to protect targets. So this skull passively orbits around near you and just kind of shoots at enemies. One would have to assume, kind of like the arbitrator's dog. But it can be ordered to protect targets, which sounds really cool to me. If you can send this drone to orbit around a different character, like you can send them out and be like, okay, go protect that guy, go kind of hang out with him for a little bit, and then call him back when you're done, or send him to a different target. That will actually make this really, really cool like mechanic, because if you've got your Servo-Skull and he's equipped with flamethrower, which is one of the things we know that the Servo-Skull can be equipped with. If he's equipped with a flamethrower, you have to get in close range to use that. But what if you're a ranger? You know, what if you're a Skitarii ranger with a galvanic rifle and you've got the flamethrower? That could help you defend at close range, but if you're way in the back, you could put this on the Ogryn and send him to the front line, and now the Ogryn has a skull who's looking out for him and can help him to control the horde and like sort of, you know, keep that area on lockdown. That could be really, really cool if you could send this thing to like watch over the guy who's carrying the power cell or doing the objective or whatever. Also, it can, of course, engage enemy combats, but perform Medicae on injured comrades. Now, this one is the one I'm the most skeptical of. I think it's very unlikely that the Fat Shark has introduced a healer class here that like every 30 seconds you can just get a wound back. You can just give Medicae to somebody. I would guess that this is either going to serve the purposes of, oh, it can just administer whatever stim you're holding at range to an ally, or it can revive an ally if you choose the talent point. But as far as actually doing Medicae, like in the game sense of Medicae where you get your health back and you get your wounds back, that seems crazy to me. Like in not in the like, oh my god, that would be so OP. It would be OP, yes, if they included it, but it seems nonsensical to me that they would include that as a game mechanic, because that's like one of the things that is the hardest to balance around. That's kind of how the game's balance is set, is based on how much damage enemies can deal and how much you can heal off with the in-game resources. And so if you had one character on your team who like every 30 seconds or on some sort of timer can just remove wounds from your team, that's going to make it impossible to fucking balance, because then you can just play as slow as you want and just heal up all the time. Yeah, just having a character on your team who can reset that. That's the same problem that Space Marine 2 runs into, where if you've got a bulwark on your team and people know what they're doing, every minute the bulwark can reset everybody's health to full. And that is like super, super hard to, to balance around, because it's supposed to be a game where you get whittled down over time and you only get a certain amount of health resupplies. You have to be working for it, but then the bulwark can just come in and be like, full health for everybody. GG. That seems broken. So yeah, I'm guessing this can, like, you can opt to have your skull be able to help players up, but I would also guess, because these are blitz abilities, that there was a cooldown related thing here. So our less impactful things like hacking or like shooting a las pistol, those are probably a short cooldown, but more impactful, such as a flamethrower or reviving a downed ally, big cooldown. That would be how I would go about balancing this sort of mechanic. Okay, and so that's about all we know about our little friend the skull right now. And let's wrap up by talking about the classes themselves. So right here, we've got some stuff about how the class works and how it can be customized. The non-linear talent tree enables unprecedented levels of build customization. We saw that a few days ago. Basically, it's spreads out from the center. And whether you envision your Skitarii as a ruthless, long-range assassin, that would be the Skitarii Ranger archetype, which is the default archetype, with deadly aim. A frenzied servant on the Omnissiah carving through flesh with a transonic blade, that is the Skitarian Ruststalker archetype, or a walking storm of living electricity. What is this? I thought it might be like some sort of bastardized Electro Priest concept, but what I think this is now, I think this is the Skitarii Vanguard. I think that I've come full circle here. I think this is the Skitarii Vanguard, because there's concept art of the Skitarii Vanguard. Several of these weapons, the Power Sword and the Arc Maul, are like very much the Skitarii Vanguard's weapons, and they do have like some elements of like their armor. They kind of have more power armor than the regular Vanguard or regular Skitarii do. So I think that this walking storm of living electricity, I think this is alluding to, instead of having this character be surrounded by radiation, where they're going to, like, you know, irradiate nearby enemies, I think that this is what they've gone with instead. I think that you can channel, like, become like a lightning rod, where your armor is a conduit for electricity and you can electrify enemies that you are nearby. I think that is sort of the avenue they're taking here. And this is where I want to showcase a couple other things here. So where did I leave it? It's on one of these pages. And okay, so yeah, here is, by the way, here's our Skitarii Vanguard, right? This is Skitarii Vanguard Alpha. Here is a Skitarii Ranger, which is very much what our guy looks like. Here is a Skitarian Ruststalker, right? So the Skitarii Vanguard here, look at what they show in the trailer for the dev blog making of, right? So here is it's 100% a Skitarii Vanguard. That is their helmet, and they wear this helmet because they're like fucked up. Their faces look terrible underneath that. But then if we let it play for like a millisecond, look what appears like right after her. This is a cord claw. This has got to be a cord claw, right? Like, or maybe it's just their hand. I don't. But their hands typically don't have claws like that. I'm guessing that, yeah, I'm guessing that this is like a cord claw. Now this is obviously not like, you know, rendered in the game or anything. This is art. This is a design document. But here's my thought. If we have the store page that, as I mentioned a second ago, the store page is talking about having this electrified goad, or, you know, and players are, we have the other transonic weapons represented here, the transonic blade, transonic razor, but we don't have the most like sort of like characteristic one of the Skitarian Ruststalker. What if there is another way to customize your character? And with the Skitarii, absolutely possible, right? Because there's one more thing they say up here about the characters, which is that when we're talking about these characters, their core power systems fuel a wide array of combat abilities, each accessible at different levels and growing in strength as more core power is allocated to them. So there is a high potential here that our class is going to be customizable beyond the talent tree, like sort of elements, beyond what weapons you're equipped with. Perhaps there is an augmentation to your like actual physical capabilities here, and you can replace one of your hands with the cord claw, such that you have a passive ability to slash with this thing on a cooldown, or that becomes like your melee instead or something. Perhaps you can equip yourself with the taser goad that was mentioned down here when they're talking about that electrified goad. And it's not actually a weapon, but it's instead like a part of your character, like physically. I don't know, but like it just seems to me that you show the cord claw, or that has to be a cord claw, right? Like maybe it's just a really pointy fingered hand, but to me it feels like we have to be getting this armor set in the game. If with this much detail, we have to be getting a Skitarii Vanguard in the game, and it would seem to me that we would also be getting this armor here, that cord claw. So yeah, I'm thinking that there is some element that we are not yet seeing here. We'll know in a few weeks' time, but I think that there's going to be a customization past the just what weapons you equip. I think you're going to be able to swap limbs. I think you're going to be able to like power up different systems more or less based on the core power here. Very much like how the Hive Scum has their stims, where you can inject the stims and get those powers, and you get more and more stim points as you level. See, it says each accessible at different levels and growing in strength as more core power is allocated to them. And yeah, this core power grows as your character grows. I think it says somewhere, but I can't remember where. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking we got ourselves, those 6 weapons I was talking about. That's my guess as to how they might function. We have the Skitarii Vanguard, the Skitarii Ranger, and the Sicarian Ruststalker are going to be our 3 archetypes, but obviously you can choose and dabble any which way you want. We have some better ideas about what our skull will be able to do in terms of being useful on the battlefield. I'm very excited to see it like follow other players around and help them in their little battles. You just you put your skull, like you spawn and you figure out who on your team is the most Timmy of everybody. Like, okay, that guy's the biggest liability here. Assign the skull to them, just leave it at the whole game. Just help them out. That's sort of how I feel when I got the dog. It's like, yeah, you need a dog to help you out. Anyway, guys, that is everything I can think of for today. Hopefully this is titillating your brain as much as it is mine. I'm so excited to learn more about this class, and hopefully we get a good dev blog this week. It's supposed to be about art and the art design, so maybe some more really good images of what we can expect as far as cosmetics and weapon skins and stuff like that. So very excited. All right, thanks guys for watching. Mystery out of here. Bye bye.